Hey friends, Monodux here. Today I'm bringing you a patch inspired by devices like the Moog DFAM, the Behringer Edge, that you can patch up on your modular system. Today I'm using a System 55 for this patch, and I'll be talking about how it's put together. Alright, so this patch was inspired by a video from Mylar Melodies called A Love Letter to the DFAM, and he goes into a good amount of detail in that video talking about how things are put together in the routing. So kind of based on what he was saying, I've attempted to patch this up. This is one of the harder ones that I've done, so I definitely wanted to have a good record of how it goes together. Like I said, I'm using the Behringer System 55 for this patch. Everything is as it comes in the system. And let's start by talking about the components. You can see about half of my modular has been taken up with this already. So there's a lot to it. Firstly, we're using 2 oscillators and a noise source, and those are our audio sources for the instrument. We're going to run those into a mixer and take care of their levels together in that primary mixer. From that mixer, the audio runs into the voltage-controlled low-pass filter, and from the filter to a VCA for amplitude, and then out to the world. So from the beginning with your audio path, it's pretty standard fare for any sort of monosynth signal. What makes this different is that we're using a variety of envelope generators and voltage-controlled amplifiers to cause different effects to happen. So what drives the whole thing is the 960 sequential controller, and as we program the rows, I'm going to use 2 rows of that, so it'll be just like a DFAM or an Edge. The 2 rows are going to accomplish pretty much everything we need in terms of voltage. And then from there, we're going into our various envelope generators and VCAs, providing signals through the system and setting up something that we can play. All right, so let's talk about how we've got it wired up. The first row of my sequencer is going to control pitch, and that's all that it really does. Top row is going to go into my oscillators to control their pitch. There's no need to control noise pitch, of course, because there isn't a pitch in your noise. The second row of the sequencer is really the business end of all the modulation that we're going to do. Since I'm using a System 55, which requires S-trigs for the envelope generators, the first thing I'm doing with row 2 is getting an S-trig signal from that V-trig using my interface. And then from there, I'm going to take that primary control signal through a mult to control essentially 3 out of the 4 envelopes in my system. Actually, I take that back. This is going to control every single envelope, this one signal. So we're running that into the envelopes, and then from the envelopes we're going into their respective VCAs and their locations throughout the system. So the first one that we control with row 2 is the envelope generator that is connected to the VCA over volume. So that's going to be controlling our primary audio signal going out to the world. The second envelope generator will be controlling the VCA mapped to pitch over those oscillators. So we can modify that and give it a different kind of attack. by modulating that VCA signal. The third is going from an envelope generator into the voltage controlled filter, and will be modulated by a VCA connected to that. And in my case, I've run an extra envelope signal into the control voltages module to control my filter, just to give me a little bit more top end on the noise. And so all that goes together to give you an instrument that you can play by changing your 960 controller settings on rows 1 and 2, using the low pass filter, filter sweeps, resonance sweeps, all of that, and then tweaking your VCAs. You can also tweak your envelopes. It took me a while to get to a good percussive sound, so I'm not going to do much tweaking on the envelopes. Mostly it'll be VCAs. The most critical piece of this to understand is that the row 2 on the sequencer is doing double duty, and this is what makes everything possible. Not only is row 2 sending out triggers to my envelopes, but very importantly, it's sending just the general voltage which I'm running through the amps that the envelopes are controlling. So that same row is doing double duty. Voltage signals I'm running into a multiple and running those signals through the amplifier, which the same row is controlling via gates running into those amplifiers. That took me a long time to understand, so I just want to emphasize that before we move on. So this is what you get with that. I'm going to start my sequencer. My audio signal is running into my VCA, my voltage controlled low pass filter. And I've run into, as I mentioned earlier, an extra envelope into the control voltages just to give me a little bit more spike over that high-end signal. And I've set this to exponential, and my envelope generator is making that just a much sharper, quick percussive attack. So here's without that. Here is with it. This gives me a little bit more there. So obviously you can mess with your resonance. We can mess with our VCA controls. So all of my VCAs do have attenuators. I should say you can also hear a delay that's coming from my mixer. Now I've also got VCA for pitch. Which is basically just changing the pitch on the initial attack. That envelope has got attack all the way down and a little bit of decay. So we can hear that bend. You can change that decay. And then I've got a VCA that's over the filter. This is essentially two that are controlling the filter. So the way that the sequencer is working is, I don't know if you can see my knobs clearly, but when the voltage is high, we get both a strike and the corresponding amount of like noise because the filter's open. But if I turn that all the way down, we basically skip the step. So you can get your pattern, your basic pattern, from changing the voltage on those. And you can do them halfway up. They don't have to be binary. And then you can change your pitch. And one of the characteristics of the 960 is that when you get really close on the voltage of your row 2, it's almost like a tied note. So that's pretty cool. One of the other things you can do with the 960 is use row 3 to control timing, so you have that on top of what you're doing. So yeah, you can do some pretty wild stuff. So I hope this is helpful. If you want to try putting together a drum machine on your modular, this is quite fun. Although after putting it together, I must say, when I see how much real estate it takes up in this system, I can see the appeal of getting a DFAM or an Edge or something like that to take care of all this routing for you. Anyway, loads of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you like the new intro. Trying to raise the level of my game with graphics and things like that. Anyway, I appreciate you watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And click the bell so you'll know when new stuff is coming out. All right, take care.